Chapter 161. Remnants of the Dark Magic Association. 2. Deep, dark, and large. It was the first impression the magicians felt when entering the cave. As it was her first time seeing earth magic, Enya looked around with curiosity. They made it pretty big. Those pathetic criminals. What if there aren't only 50 but 500 of them? Maybe they wanted to make a fortress. Each of the novices made comments of astonishment. Meanwhile, Jean was thinking about something else. This isn't something 53 4-stars can create. Because of its usefulness, earth magic was often used in all kinds of construction, and cave creation was the most representative usage. Whether it was a cave to escape the rain during a trip or a research cave created by lots of time and effort, it was a very common phenomenon. However, a cave of this size was on a different level. Compared to a small cave, these larger projects needed to have meticulous support in the ceiling so that the cave wouldn't collapse. The entrance is larger than the central hall of the castle in Hosen. Though it's an easy job for about a dozen low-level magicians to do, Jean squinted and examined the ceiling and walls. The supports are excessively perfect. It has to be a work of one person. The entrance was well-paved concrete. If it isn't someone who mastered the art of earth magic, it would be impossible. Jean stared at Otten Melson's back. He wanted to see how the lead magician would react. I don't know about the novices and the co-leader, but if Otten Melson was really a 7-star, he would be terrified. If he were to order further advancement into the cave, Otten either had to be a Dark Magic Association spy or was intentionally putting the novices in danger. Soon after, Otten twirled his wand and cast a short spell, Seismic Sense. The spell Jean had used to track down Mesa and the Kinselo soldiers in his first mission. At the time, he multicast Wind Pursuit to improve its effectiveness, but Otten was not a multicaster. Rumble, the Seismic Sense magic crawled across the surfaces of the cave. Seeing that Seismic Sense was extending out, it might be a tunnel instead. At least 500 meters at that. What should we do, Sir Otten? The co-leader questioned him. The novices will advance forward with their wands, ready for a force field at all times. You will wait here with groups 4 and 5 and regroup quickly when Arch comes. Yes, sir. Don't fool around for long. This is only in case he might get lost. He delegated groups 1, 2, and 3 along with Arch as diversions, and he forced groups 4 and 5 with a 6-star magician out of the main group. The group of 30 suddenly became 15 novices and Otten. Now I'm certain. He's either a spy, or he's sabotaging the plan on purpose. It was more likely that he was the former. Splitting up the group was probably to allow the Dark Magic Association to take each group down one by one. And a strict vegan ate some meat? He also had to consider that the leader was not the real Otten Melson. Jean then recalled Bouvard Gaston. He had information about Bouvard and was attacked by the Zipfel's most savageous headhunters transformed as guardian knights. So, he also considered the transformation crimes. I'll just keep watching. He suspected that he was a spy. However, he didn't really want to intervene. None of the academy novices and their companions or the innocent citizens look as important to Jean. Given that the Vermont imperial family was also closer to the Zipfels than the Runcandles, any novice was a potential threat to Jean. And above all, even if Otten revealed himself and a fight broke out, Jean just needed to win and escape with Enya. Since 50 dark magic peons and Otten is enough for me. They walked for a while. The cave was only filled with the winds that traveled throughout. From inside the cave, nothing special happened. Ha! One of the novices in the front let out a sound and stopped walking. Their body collapsed like a sand castle, and a puddle of blood emerged. Even when they saw the orc that shot the arrow that pierced the novice's chest, the other novices couldn't detect the severity of the situation. And so it begins. An ambuawish. Just noticing the orcs, one novice frantically screamed. Some rushed over to other novices and began to heal while others cast a force field. The others lifted their wands and examined the surroundings. As for Otten, he gathered mana at the tip of his wand and pierced the novice who first screamed, "Urk! Kuhuk!" and induced an overflow reaction. Whoever Auten was, he was definitely a magician with 7-star mana. Sir Auten, why are you doing this? The novices near him stepped back. They couldn't believe their eyes as they saw Auten's expressionless face. Sir Auten, Tish, there are orcs, dozens of them. From the darkness behind Auten, orcs emerged. Behind the army, a group of humans in dark robes made themselves known. The remnants of the Dark Magic Association. There were about 50 of them, just as the 7-colored peacock had reported. Well done for making it all the way here, Auten announced to the injured novices, their eyes filled with fear and confusion. Sir Auten, what is this? Were you a spy for the Dark Magic Association? Unfortunately so. Frontline hurting? Ha ha ha. How are you not embarrassed? You bastard. You will now become the Dark Magic Association's test subjects. The novices only thought of the horrible death that lay ahead. Their opponents were 50 dark magicians, 20 orcs, and a 7-star magician. There were only 15 novices remaining in the cave. With 2 going down from an arrow and mana overflow, 15 easily became 13. Ah, shit. The novices dropped their belongings and began to flee. The only ones not fleeing were Jean and Enya. The orcs didn't shoot arrows at the ones running away, knowing that it was futile. Yeah. He loves hunting game that runs. Run as much as you want since you can't even be used as test subjects. The path that they came from was empty, without any obstruction. However, outside the cave, there would soon be monsters that would enjoy their playtime with 2 6-star magicians and a herd of novices. I didn't expect it to progress like this. Auten, that bastard. It seems that he's definitely someone that Bouvard transformed. Jean sighed. He could feel Enya shuddering behind him. However, she wasn't only quivering in fear, but also releasing her mana to fight whenever the time came. A big difference from the other novices who wandered hopelessly. Mora, Oren, and Chip only looked at Jean. They knew that he was in the Special Forces of Magic, so they believed there was a way out. Yet, in reality, even a Special Forces of Magic agent couldn't face all of them. It was better that Jean was not what he told them. Brother, what do we do? The novices are all going to die. Don't worry, everything's fine. Why are you worried about the ones who bullied you? Because they all weren't like that. Most of them were, though. 1 or 2 of them would be good people, right? From now on, stick right next to me. Don't even get a stride further. No one could hear their conversation. Jean fixed Enya's hood and smiled. Jean kept his face hidden with his hood. There were more enemies than expected, but it was still fine. The magician who made this cave. As long as I play with precaution, this will be an easy job. I don't think it's Auten, so it must be one of them. The culprit had to be one of the 50 Dark Magic Association magicians, since they all wore identical robes, confirming it was near impossible. However, he would find out soon. Jean already knew one spell that would deal with all of them. Do you think you will survive this way? Auten, a pretentious statement. Now it's my turn. If you surrender, then I will offer some mercy. However, resistors will face the most horrifying punishment known to man. The novices exchanged glances with each other, then looked at the enemy. Some escapees were not visible at all as the remaining novices turned to follow the followers who already escaped. Just as he said, it won't be a good idea to escape, novices. I can't guarantee the lives of the ones who already fled. We came in too deep, and it also seems something is waiting outside. Jean stepped forward. All eyes were on him. Oh ho, a follower who didn't flee. Have you gone crazy? How dare a mere follower call me? Clack! Jean swung his wand to the ground. The spell he prepared drew a magic circle on the ground, and mana flowed out of the rune characters drawn on Jin's back. Huhong! Kaang! Kithiayang! Pale white mana filled the cave ceiling before morphing into a sphere. The novices looked at it for only a moment, and they immediately had foam in their mouths. The same could have been said for the dark magicians. However, compared to the novices, the dark magicians had blood leaking out of every hole of their body as their bodies convulsed. It was because Jean concentrated the spell toward them. and Auten, who temporarily lost focus due to the unexpected. Grand spell. Could only speak with a quivering voice. If this must be Kiddard Halls? Heavenly Defiance. The ultimate spell of overload magic. To Jean, the moment he learned that spell marked the day when any fight between magicians was no longer about numbers. Chapter 162. Remnants of the Dark Magic Association, 3. As if a whirlpool swallowing water, the mana sphere endlessly sucked the mana out of the novices and dark magicians. Dozens of mana strands flew and spiraled into the whirlpool, brightening the dark cave. King, Keithiying. The shrill noise from the Heavenly Defiance was amplified by the cave walls. From the absolute calamity in the cave, only 4 magicians remained. The culprit of the Heavenly Defiance and Enya sticking right next to him, Fake Auten, who just got a trail of blood between his lips, and another dark magician who was quivering from the initial attack. It's mine, the one who created this cave. Compared to Auten, the magician was barely standing. Muttering some words, a mana barrier formed around him, and it looked like the magician was using all of his strength to suppress the overflowing mana. About an 8-star. If overload magic didn't exist, or if Heavenly Defiance didn't exist, Jean would never be able to induce an overflow reaction from him. Based on pure mana, the enemy would be 1 step higher. Austin cast a barrier. The orcs will wake up soon. Multicasting while retaining the Heavenly Defiance was still impossible for Jean. Oh yes sir. Because it was her first real fight, Enya was very inexperienced. She didn't know what to do for about 10 seconds after Jean cast the spell. However, he didn't feel that she was dumb. She's still pretty incredible. It's her first time, and I never told her what would happen. But she's still in her right mind. As an average 16-year-old magician and a student, she would have been stuck in despair. However, Jean liked that Enya cast the barrier with composure. Now go for that one with a spell you're most confident in. Not at Auten, but the black-robed one? Jean nodded, and a drop of sweat flew off. Drip. Only 9-star magicians should be able to cast Heavenly Defiance. Since Jean was only a 7-star, he couldn't cast it to its full potential, nor could he continue to cast it. Kuherg. Losing against the overflow reaction, Fake Auten ultimately fell to the floor, throwing up blood. However, the 8-star seemed to have regained some of his health and stability, beginning to breathe normally. She. From Enya's hand, a barrage of sharp wind whooshed out. A harsh echo ensued, but it wasn't enough to pierce the barrier. The wind shard shattered after contacting the barrier, and the orcs turned their heads towards the attacker. Stand and shoot your arrows. Thankfully, they also faced the early stages of overflow. They couldn't attempt an attack equivalent to that of an 8-star magician. But if Heavenly Defiance recedes, they'll begin to fire their magic at will. If possible, he had to finish the job without using excessive mana. If what Auten said was right, the other enemies would find them immediately. Ka-ak! The orcs scurried here and there, picked up their bows and pulled its string. About half of the 20 failed to pull the string back, and about 4 or 5 successfully fired the bow. The arrows hit Enya's barrier and made loud, hollow sounds. Brother, what should we do? If I use Lord Ulta's power, I might be able to deal with some orcs. However, breaking the 8-star magician's force field by myself, save that power, and just block a few more arrows. All right. A strange smile stretched across the 8-star magician's face. He felt that the Heavenly Defiance above was getting weaker. He probably noticed that Jin's mana was rapidly decreasing. As such, the 8-star could only think that time was on his side. That kid probably thinks that I'm out of mana. It was true that Jean would face overflow effects if he didn't deactivate the spell. I guess I took a hit. Did Kiddard have a hidden apprentice or something? The 8-star shouted at Jean. Thanks to the mana whirlpool getting smaller, he regained enough strength. You're going to die soon. So why do you need to know? Nonsense. You would have taken a hit from losing focus. But since I already identified that you are only a 7-star, I am Raltjo. I'm sure you've heard of me? Raltjo, the younger brother of Andre Zipfel's arch-nemesis. Cold Joe, piqued his interest. I've heard that Cole Joe had an underachieving younger brother who was talented in earth magic. I would have never known his name was Ralt Joe. I'll tell you straightforwardly. Join the Dark Magic Association, apprentice of Kiddard Hall. What if I decline? The moment your mana depletes, I'll end your life. Isn't it obvious? You had no chance of victory the moment you didn't finish me off with that spell. Jean didn't reply, so Ralt ordered the orcs to lower their weapons. I am showing mercy because your master, Kiddard Hall, had good relations with us. There isn't much time left before your heavenly defiance dies out. Your mana is almost all gone. What will you do? According to you, I don't have a choice, don't I? If I don't join, I only have death. That is why I said I'm showing mercy. Jean sighed and then flicked his eyes to Ralt. Ralt Joe, what line of the Dark Magic Association are you? Are you asking for your friend? I'll say that it is within my 10 fingers. Even if Kiddard Hall wasn't our good friend, we would still appreciate your talent and ability. As soon as you join, we will immediately promote you to a higher position. Within 10 fingers? Jin's eyes narrowed. So you're telling me that the association has at least 9 others as strong as you? I thought you guys were garbage that used your old name to scare others. But the offer is still compelling. Jean spoke as if he wasn't shocked, but he hid his true emotions. If Ralt's words were true, the association would not only be considered the remnants of course, we will accept you after fixing your disrespectful attitude. Well, you achieved a lot at such a young age, so I do understand your ego in the skies. But don't you want to know why I came here in the first place? As a follower of Academy magicians, on top of that. We'll find out soon enough during the conversion process. Well, alright. You must be itching to try out your overload spells. I'm sure Kiddard would have told you that the world will be below your feet as he transferred the Tome of Overload. Jean smiled and nodded. Alright, I will join the Dark Magic Association. However, I have one request. One request. Try to take me down. I can't go under someone weaker than me, right? Puhaha, you are something. You still have enough energy to flaunt your prowess? I can see why Kiddard took you in. I think you were stuck in a delusion, but I am not Kiddard's apprentice. It seems that you haven't learned my name yet. The Tome of Overload was my prize for killing him. What? Whoosh! The heavenly defiance shrunk to the size of a head, and the mana spiral turned black. The whirlpool spun again, bathing the surroundings in darkness. The spiritual energy strengthened the power of the heavenly defiance. Spiritual energy of the same amount had the same strength as aura or mana that was 2 levels above. Since it was 5-star spiritual energy, it was no different than 7-star mana. You hup! Gak! Ralt reactively covered his mouth and threw up blood. It had only been a minute since he suffered from the early stages of overflow from his mana spell. Before, he used his strength as an 8-star and managed to prevent the worst reaction. However, this time was different. He was certain that Jean was out of mana, and he suffered from the aftershock of overflow. He had to resist another attack. Yet that was impossible even for someone like Ralt. Shit! One name appeared in Ralt's head. The name written on Kiddard's lab wall. Jean Grey? No way. And that dark power. Spiritual energy. The dark, omnipotent power that all magicians desired. Hopelessness shone in Ralt's eyes. So he's Soderet's contractor that Kinselo was searching for. Not just heavenly defiance, but also spiritual energy. There was no time to calm his frantic mind. The orcs stumbled backwards, in fear, and Ralt realized his unrecoverable mistake. You said that I lowered my guard, but you were the one who did. Kurg, Arg, Shing. Jean unsheathed Bradamant, and from its pale white blade, aura flickered. Why, you bastard! PSSSSHT. Glug glug glug. The overflow took over. Checking that Ralt leaked blood from every hole on his face, Jean stopped his magic before walking towards him. Kiddard Hall showed similar reactions. I want to let you live and ask you a lot of things. The size of the Dark Magic Association, your main base, and your objectives? Kerark, Kurg. but I can just use fake Otten who is soundly fainted. Above all, I might have a little fight with the one who enjoys hunting game. Slash. Thunk. Jean lightly swung Bradamanti and beheaded him. The orcs immediately began to run away. I'll take care of that. Enya swung her wand in the air and shot icicles. A herd of orcs was usually not suitable for a 4-star magician, but it was easier since they were running away. The orcs that were hit with an icicle fainted near the group of fainted magicians. Good job, Austin. Thank you, brother. But now you have to do one more thing. I think some big guy came into the cave. Boom, boom, boom. They had just finished their fight with Ralt. Yet from the path they came from, far away, heavy footsteps came towards them. A humanoid silhouette emerged, and this time, Jean couldn't hide his anxiety for the next opponent. The one who returned from playing with the remaining magicians that fake Otten separated. A White Wolf Tribesman? Chapter 163. Remnants of the Dark Magic Association. 4. Towering at 3 meters while looking muscular and nimble at the same time, covered in white fur, and has wolf-like eyes, just like their name. Rather large for a white wolf tribesman. Blood stains were painted across the hammer slung behind his back. Evidence that he slaughtered the magicians outside the cave. I can see why the fake Otten said they enjoy lively hunting game. Being the most notorious fighting tribe amongst the beastmen, the White Wolf tribe treated humans like food or toys when faced with a significant opponent. Whoa! What the hell happened here? Shit went down. The White Wolf tribesman looked around and clicked his tongue. Seeing the dark magicians on the floor, he looked very conflicted. The giant was surprised, but not scared, even after seeing close to 50 of his underlings dead or unconscious. Man, I wondered whose head that was, but it was Ralt's. Kiki, unbelievable. Let's see, I guess the betrayal didn't work out. As soon as he appeared, Enya pointed her wand with a stone-cold face. She no longer wanted to shudder in fear, determination fully evident on her face. You're going to learn a lot from this experience, Enya. If they could resolve the situation and safely return to Tychon, that is. The Beastman pointed at the two with exaggerated movement, as if he were in a play. You two kids, this is your doing? It must be 'cause I'm never wrong. You induced mana overflow to all of them? Ralt said that there was a human magician who was crazy for overload spells. Everyone knew that a magician going through mana overflow threw up blood and fainted. The finger pointed at Jean and Enya had the girth of a steel bar. Instead of answering, Jean met eyes with him. Ha! Well then, you're a little kid magician, and you dare look at me like that? It's all right to be a little scared. Jean had immediately concealed his sword after beheading Ralt, causing the Beastman to think that he was a magician. There was nothing good about telling the enemy that he was a magic swordsman. Thanks to his decision, the Beastman thought he and Enya were magicians. It won't be too late to determine that after I hear your name. Jean spoke, and the Beastman shuddered. Then he clapped loudly before howling. Amazing! On a different level than the ones outside. I like you a lot. My name is Goltep Hafalep. It feels awkward telling you my name when our battle will end very quickly. Haha. After hearing the name, Jean internally sighed in relief. I thought he was Tuzard Raker or Buteau Wens because of his large body, but thank goodness. Tuzard Raker and Buteau Wens were famous warriors of the White Wolf tribe for their massive bodies. In human terms, they were 9 stars and were still a hard fight for Jean. Either way, he had never heard of Goltep's name. It was highly likely that his opponent was not some talented warrior. Despite it not being Tuzard or Buteau, Jean couldn't just relax since all White Wolf tribespeople were born and raised for combat. Goltep Hafalep, you say? First time hearing it. I'm Jean Grey. This is Austin Grey. Well, don't you think you should be a little scared? We too wiped out your entire team. What do you mean, team? Other than Ralt, they were all just heads of meat to fill the numbers. Don't be proud of killing some of the peons. The White Wolf tribe was specifically covered in magic textbooks. It mentioned that they were difficult to injure with spells that were 6-star and below, and their fur had magic reflective properties. Hence, Jean and Enya didn't scare Goltep despite being in his very talented magicians list. Goltep also assumed that the two acted fine but had depleted mana. Since Ralt, Fake Autumn, and over 50 other peons either suffered from overflow or were dead, Goltep could only make the conclusion. Well, since Ralt is dead, it'll be a little problematic if I just return. Goltep grasped his forehead, then clapped his hands. All right, I will make a deal. Your ability has been proven since you killed Ralt and the other meatball. How about this? Instead of being minced by my hammer, you will join the Kinzalo group. Jin's eyes widened. Kinzalo? Isn't this the Dark Magic Association's cave? Oh, that's Kinzalo's, what do you call that again? A branch of some sort. Only knights and warriors are part of Kinzalo. So the magicians are part of the Dark Magic Association. He heard something interesting. Ever since the seven-colored peacock identified Vishikal and Bouvard as affiliates of the Kinzalo group, the organization became Jin's next target of interest. Now that I think about it, on my first mission during my cadet days, Quasito Truca also seemed to be affiliated with Kinzalo. And the Dark Magic Association at that. The Kinzalo group and the White Wolf tribe, what was their relationship? Along with the assumption that the entirety of the White Wolf tribe might be a part of the Kinzalo group, Jin felt that the organization was a bigger and more threatening force than he had initially thought. Because there were at least 9 more magicians over 8-star in the Dark Magic Association. In other words, you are going to become a part of the Dark Magic Association under the Kinzalo group. You'll be perfect in Ralt's spot. I'll be seeing the leader soon too. Who's your leader? I'll tell you after you join. Work with us. I think you guys have more worth than the trash over there. Especially you. The Beastman pointed at Jean. I just know you're made of good stuff. Dead Ralt over there said the same thing. I basically got invited twice. It seems Kinzalo is running low on people. I think you guys are picking people too carelessly and are giving out leadership positions like spraying water. There's always not enough people to fuck with the world. And you said this was the second time? There usually isn't a third chance. Your life is too young and too precious to lose yet. My mercy stops here. Goltep's smile disappeared, and he began to emit waves of energy. Within his body, as soon his aura began to engulf his body, the cave's air got heavier. Enya glared at the Beastman, and Jean raised his wand. Do you want to know what I answered when Ralt invited me to become his underling? Speak. I can't work under someone weaker than me. That applies to you as well. If you want me in the organization, take me down. If I lose, then I will take your deal seriously. Murderous intent grew in Goltep's eyes. His energy isn't anything normal. However, I don't feel any threat at all. Goltep drew his hammer. Thud. It was bigger than Luna's axe sword, Crantle. Even though the hammer only lightly hit the ground, the cave rumbled. Your skill doesn't match your intelligence. I see now. However, as I already said, there will not be a third chance. No more chivalry, only punishment. Whoom! As soon as Goltep jumped into the air, Enya flinched and raised her wand. She was startled from losing Goltep from her wand's trajectory. Even a 4-star warrior wouldn't have been able to detect the speed. A black silhouette flashed across the cave, instantly closing the gap. At minimum, a 6-star warrior would be able to barely react to such movement. Boom! The hammer fell onto Jin's barrier. From the strike, cracks traversed across it, and it broke to the second strike. For the third strike, Jin had to cast another barrier. Yu-woo! In the short moment that the first barrier broke, Enya shot wind shards. However, a 4-star wind spell wouldn't be effective against the Beastman's fur. On that note, Enya had the abilities and actions of a talented magician. Instead of the body, she went straight for the eye. However, hitting a fast-moving target with magic was not an easy feat, Goltep scoffed. He didn't even block the attack. Instead, he opened his mouth and ate the projectiles, which surprised Jean. As expected, the girl isn't much. Why don't you stop making the barrier and use that egotistical ass of yours, Jean? Gray. 2. Goltep spat, then licked his lips. The spell didn't even leave a scratch in his mouth. His saliva didn't have blood mixed with it. Huh! How'd he know I was a girl? Who are you trying to fool with that stupid disguise? Everyone. Which is why humans are pathetic. Anyway, move aside, side character. I want to see Jean Grey in action. Boom. Tum. Boom. The speed of the hammer made it look light. Blocking with a barrier would no longer be possible. I guess acting like a pure magician was futile. I wished Enya would at least pop an eyeball before the real battle began. Like Enya, Jean also went for the eye. However, noticing that it was basically impossible, he didn't need to waste any more mana. Moreover, as he examined Goltep's swings while in the barrier, he thought that playing defensive was no longer needed. Is it because I got stronger that he doesn't feel too threatening? Crash. The moment the fourth barrier broke, Jean threw his wand away and unsheathed Bradamanti. Quickly ducking under a swing, he thrusted Bradamanti forward. Thanks to his mind's eye, he could be certain that if he dodged the hammer, it still wouldn't hit Enya. Yuwa! Enya ducked, covered her head, and screamed. Goltep got slashed by Jean from the unexpected swordsmanship. Plop, plop. From his thigh, blood splattered everywhere, and Goltep trudged to make distance. Shit! You were a magic swordsman? Everyone falls for it. Whoom! Jean engulfed Bradamanti in aura. Goltep stopped momentarily. Then, forgetting the problem, he covered his hammer with aura once more. I thought the decapitation on Ralt was too clean, so you did it with a sword instead of magic. But nothing will change, Jean Grey. Oh, there is one thing. I won't kill you. I have to show the boss. Whip, ist. Jean twirled Bradamanti in his palm and took his stance. I want to advise you to not lower your guard. It's been some time since I fought a White Wolf tribesman. It'll be sad if it ends bitterly. Chapter 164. Remnants of the Dark Magic Association. 5. Crumble. Every time Goltep's hammer fell to the floor, rocks exploded, and shards flew everywhere. Seeing the crater on the floor, Enya gulped, and Jean confidently dodged. It was leisurely for Jean, but a little too close for comfort for Enya. It was unavoidable, since her eyes weren't adjusted to the movement of a 7-star. Brother! Stay back, Austin! Enya shouted frantically, but Jean felt a shocking feeling through his spine. He could feel his entire body shuddering. Boom! Crash! Crack! The massive hammer restlessly slammed on the floor and minced it. Every time Goltep recoiled for another swing, there was a sound of wind. The hammer moved erratically. White Wolf tribesmen held weapons before they even walked, and Goltep was a veteran who had over 300 battles worth of experience. From the left to the right, right to the left, then left to the right again. The trajectory scarily chased Jin's dodges. The hammer danced through the air, basically summarizing all of the experiences from past battles. There was flow amongst his movements as well. The swings were optimized to crush the opponent. Only high-achieving warriors wouldn't recognize the niche, and Jean was one of those high-achieving warriors. No wonder his body was shuddering. Since when was dodging the enemy's attacks so exasperating? The only thing that had been successfully crushed during the 30 seconds of rapid swinging was the floor. The scattering rocks didn't even skim Jean. How long will you evade like a rat? Goltep wasn't dumb enough to say those words. From his sparkling sapphire eyes, astonishment grew. Amazing! Stopping his swings, he looked into Jin's eyes. Goltep's breaths were the same as before he started swinging. Who are you? I have never heard of someone as young as you who rose to the main stage of warriors. Are you fooling people with your disguise? Think whatever you want. I can no longer classify you as just any hunting game. You are worthy of sacrificing to Javier's altar. The greatest warrior in Beastman history, the White Wolf tribe's Javier. He was a figure of respect across other beastmen, but considered a god amongst the White Wolf tribe. There were only 2 reasons someone would sacrifice another to the altar. Either the enemy was strong enough to fight for honor, or they were a run candle. Goltep thought of Jean as the former. I, Goltep Hafalep, will put the honor of the entire Hafalep tribe to fight you. As compensation, bet your soul to Javier. It seems the Kinzalo group allows free religion. Of course, is actually a great regime. It's a shame we won't work together. Wong. Goltep's hammer grew, an inconceivably bright light shining on his serious face. So it's for real now? Well, if your shoddy swings were all you had, that would have been pathetic. Another layer of aura engulfed Bradamanti. Jin's eyes sharpened. He took a deep breath, and Bradamanti made the first echo. The blade that remained stationary near Jin's face suddenly flew towards Goltep like an arrow. It was fast. Jin felt it, Goltep saw it. Flash. Following the trajectory of the sword, Jin's pupils quivered. Goltep raised his hammer. Clang. The sound wasn't that of a sharp weapon clashing against a dull weapon, but that of two dull weapons meeting. Goltep furrowed his eyebrows and prepared for the next strike. He could only hide his surprise. How? What kind of power is this? It had a 7-star aura, but it was impossible for it to be a fully developed boy's aura. However, the moment he blocked the attack, he felt like his hands were ripping apart from the impact. He overcame the weight gap and dominated close combat. After every strike, Goltep's image of Jin changed. It wasn't the power of a 7-star knight. There was only one explanation for such a mysterious power. A run candle. There would be no difference whether he knew about Jin's blessed bloodline or not. Jin didn't answer and continued to concentrate on his swings. One sword diverted the direction of the massive hammer, throwing sparks everywhere. A light-bodied human making a white wolf warrior stumble backwards, the great run candle that he dreamed of becoming since his past life. Jin had engaged in many battles since his regression, but there wasn't a day like this. Indeed, a run candle's fight had to be like this one-sided. Every swing should make the opponent stumble, eventually making them kneel in fear. Making everyone in the vicinity quiver in fear just by holding my sword. That was what the run candles aimed for at the extreme. He felt like many messages hid within the shine of his blade. Kra-wea! Whoosh! Shhhhhk. Goltep stepped back and swung his hammer with all his might. He swung at full strength to force Jin to back off, fully knowing that he had less choices the closer the run candle boy got. His big weapon had immense destructive power, but it wasn't suitable for pushing away a close enemy. Do I dodge? Or do I deflect it? If he deflected it, he had to minimize the impact on his body. Even if he had the blessed body and 7-star aura, Goltep's full blow would still take a toll on his body. I'll take it. There was only one reason for ignoring the more efficient choice. He wanted to enjoy his run candle name a little longer. To show that he was part of the clan full of monsters, the monster that shone the brightest, no longer a banished failure. That he would never forget the miserable memories. He suppressed his emotions that wanted to scream to the world. Crying. The moment they clashed, he felt his body was floating from the impact. However, the impact from the blade traveled through his body, then just exited somewhere. Jin just backed off 2 steps. Instantly, there was a bitter taste in his mouth. Blood from his throat climbed up his esophagus and Jin repositioned himself. Goltep was also managing his hammer. He too spilled blood, and he looked flimsy with 2 broken fingers. If a run candle gave some skin, the opponent gave up bones. If a run candle fell into a little ditch, the enemy fell into a bottomless cliff. Seeing Jin charge again, Goltep would only feel the defeat. Getting him off, pushing him away, hitting or shouting. The boy would not let him gain any ground. He blamed his lifelong weapon for the first time. God damn it! Still, Goltep prepared his hammer. He was a warrior. He had pride and honor and was a warrior who knew how to accept defeat. As long as Javier's name was spoken, the battle wasn't over until someone died. As if his broken finger was nothing, he continued to move the hammer violently. However, he wouldn't last long. The moment Bradamanti deflected the hammer, the suddenly mustered aura would cause a small congestion effect within his body. Pant. Gasp. Jin and Goltep's heavy breaths filled the surroundings. The blood from their mouths evaporated at the heat of the aura between the 2 weapons. Clang. Cocklang. Ting. The scattering sparks and loud echoes made Goltep's desperate face look expressionless. His aura slowly extinguished, and Jean lowered his aura to adjust. There was no need to push it anymore. The victor was already determined. If I spare you, would you tell me information about Kinselo? He didn't know whether he would meet another Kinselo associate. There was Bouvard Gaston, but due to Kinselo's massive presence, approaching him would be difficult. Puhu, you don't know much about the White Wolf tribe's rules. Even if not in the Kinselo group, a snitch would only face death. And as long as we're in an honorary battle, there's no stopping Jean Runcandle. I know that. However, life can be more valuable than some rules, so I asked. There isn't a coward like that in the White Wolf tribe. Then I won't ask if you would like to become a snitch. To your people. You seem nice for a Runcandle. Clang. Goltep began to squeeze the last bits of aura. For each instantaneous moment, he could muster a little more than what he had left. The ability of warriors, gathering aura using the life force. Seeing the hammer burning with aura, Jean stepped back for the first time. Man, it was getting fun. But you're actually going for an efficient fight at the end. If he didn't fight him, burning away his life force was futile. If Jean dodged, then Goltep wouldn't have enough energy to even retaliate. Jean shook his head. No, as a knight, like you, I show my respect. I salute your final moments. He remembered his fight with Myron Zipfel. The moment he cut the Hell's Gate that the magician opened, and the place he went to when he lost consciousness, the barrier walling off an area. Cut. No one told him about it. Like the ancient magic swordsman of Runcandle, Jean murmured a spell. Cut. Cut that. Hush. From the body of the blade, darkness spread. The burning spiritual energy wrapped around Bradamanti and made a figure of a blade. Whoa, Goltep let out sounds of admiration. Spiritual energy, the power that the first patriarch used to put Javier into eternal sleep. Some White Wolf tribesmen considered it a curse. However, Goltep thought facing the same death as Javier was something glorious. Come forth, Jean Runcandle. Cut. Jean muttered a spell and charged forward. Goltep swung his hammer down. For a moment, both their faces glowed from the aura. Slash. Bradamanti's dark blade swallowed the light and cut the hammer. The hammer was perfectly split into two, falling to the left and right. From the gap between the two pieces, Jean was visible. Seeing Jean, Goltep flashed a grin. H. Half a beat later, Goltep's body split into two. Jean sheathed his sword and breathed deeply. Looking towards Goltep's direction, Jean bowed before walking towards Enya. A great battle, Goltep Hafalep. I will remember your name. Along with some words of sympathy. Chapter 165. Remnants of the Dark Magic Association. 6. Enya bowed 90 degrees. She was the sole witness of the historical fight involving Jean as a Runcandle. Despite intentionally creating an inefficient battle, in Enya's eyes, it was a one-sided victory. I am inspired, brother. Inspired? Well, you were probably surprised, Austin. Since I started to beat the peon up. Jean pointed at the dead and unconscious magicians. When he cast the Heavenly Defiance, 40 of the 50 magicians died, and the other 10 fell unconscious with severe injuries. However, the unconscious ones were on the verge of death, excluding Fake Autumn. Without the assistance of healing magicians, the low-level magicians could not handle the effects of the Heavenly Defiance's overload. I was surprised. For many reasons. She tried to keep a straight face, but she was a 16-year-old girl who had never experienced real battle. She was not used to the mass death brought about by battles like Cirrus and Jean. It's your first time seeing so many dead people? Yeah, I feel a little sick, but I realized what kind of people I'm around and what I have to do in order to not become a burden to those people. Jean remembered what Quicantle told him. Jean Runcandle. Everyone here is your ally. That means that we will also offer a hand when you become a flag bearer and join the battle for hegemony. It will be an all-out war. Do you mean Enya to be deadweight when that happens? If it's fine by you, I don't mind at all if you remain as a non-combative member. I believe that, at most, one person can stay comfortable. Jean moved between the magicians' corpses. One by one, he checked their pulse by either the throat or wrist. Those with a pulse, he exerted a little more mana to accelerate the overflow effects. To prevent any remaining magician from staying alive and reporting back to the Kinslow group, he had to confirm his kills. He made them look as if they suffered from mana overflow instead of finishing them off with a dagger in order to confuse the Vermont Imperial family when they send someone to investigate. As Jean checked each death, Enya clenched her teeth. I don't want to force you into this blood-flinging life. Obviously, it isn't a normal life. If you want, you can have a nice, warm, comfortable life. Confirming all of the deaths, Jean made a bitter smile. Enya shook her head. As you said, it's abnormal. Killing others. Most people would hate it. Anyone would choose an easy and comfortable life. She slowly approached Jean. Tearing up, she grabbed both of his hands. However, I don't want to make you and everyone else do all of that nasty work. I will stand and fight with you. She resolved to play her part as one of Jin's companions. That meant taking many lives in the future. Jean overtaking the Runcandle clan, waging war against the Zipfels, conquering Siren. How many people would they have to kill? Jean and his team faced a destiny they could not evade. Even remaining in the free city of Tychon would have been impossible without war and death. Many powers existed in the world, and those powers had their eyes on Tychon. Each passing day, the eyes on the city would only grow. For now, it was only Kashmir and the seven-colored peacock. However, if it became known that the Black Dragon, Silver Dragon, and a Runcandle magic swordsman resided there, Tychon would become the essence of a storm. It wouldn't be immediately, but I will play my part someday. I don't want to be some damsel in distress like today. So please, don't tell me to sit comfortably. Austin? Enya stepped back and looked at Jean with her teary eyes. Then, she placed her hand on her chest and bowed once more. I am Ulta's contractor, Enya. Someday, I will become your most trusted grand magician. Once she returned to Tychon, her days would never be the same. Jean stopped at Enya's formality, but then he returned the respect. My thanks. I too will strive to become someone you can always trust. They raised their heads, and an awkward silence passed. Couldn't be helped, since they just finished exchanging their solemn vows. And now each was at a loss of words. Ahem. So, do we just leave? Or is there more to do? We have to take fake Otten. I kept him alive on purpose. Ah, since you have a lot to ask about the Dark Magic Association and Kinslow, I guess you have to torture him? Ahaha. I swore to play a role myself, but torture is a little... Jean smirked, then burst into laughter. Usually we'd make him open his mouth with torture if he doesn't speak up on his own. However, we don't need to do that. We have Lathri. Ah, the Dragon of Verity. Since Yuria can't do it herself yet, and though it won't be perfect, we'll be able to filter out some lies to some extent. With Lathri's resonance through Yuria, we can borrow some of the absolute eye from her. Historical figures sought AZ Mills' contractor not only to predict the future. The absolute eye could read the lies from anyone's expression. Those who weren't intensely trained to lie with immense mental focus would succumb to this ability. Well, if it doesn't work, we'll have to torture him. Jean curled up fake Otten's body and wrapped him in his robe. He wore the human ball on his back, looking as if he were carrying a sack of potatoes. However, it looked suspicious up close. At some point, fake Otten would wake up and begin to flail. It'll be tiresome to take this thing across the transfer gate security. Low-pitched groans echoed throughout the cave. The pitiful sounds were coming from the fallen novice magicians. As for them, they were all alive, compared to the dark magicians. It was thanks to Jean directing the spell towards the other direction. They were possible enemies, but killing all of them on the spot would just escalate the situation. And as Enya mentioned, at least one of them would be a decent human being. One owner of such groans was Chip. Was his mana on the greater side? Or is his resolve just that incredible? Maybe the spell was weak on his side. Jean walked over, and Chip barely raised his head. SSP. Do I still look like I'm from the Special Forces? And if you think I am, you shouldn't mutter those words. You weren't Special Forces. Chip shuddered. He knew that Jean wasn't part of the special forces as soon as the Heavenly Defiance was cast. Jin's spell satisfied all qualities of an overload spell that he learned at the academy. He didn't know it was the Heavenly Defiance, but he knew it was a special overload spell that not just anyone could cast. Now, Jean looked like a politically neutral Grand Magician to Chip. And if it weren't for this Grand Magician, everyone, including himself, would be dead. Who are you? And why did you? A groggy voice. He had just regained consciousness, but the overflow effects hadn't died down. He was still drowsy, as if he were drugged. Why did I save you? It was because my little brother wanted so. Be thankful, novice. Your little brother, Austin Gray. He met Enya's and Jin's eyes. He nodded without needing Jin's explanation. Rip. Enya took off her hood, ripped her fake mustache off, then unfurled her hair. She spat out the cotton in her mouth that gave her a defined chin, and she revealed her real face. Pascal Chip. Remember me? Enya? His eyes widened, enough to seem as if his eyes were about to roll out of their sockets. He just breathed harder, finding it hard to believe it was reality. Sorry. If you know you're sorry, why'd you do that? I'm sorry, I'm showy. With slurred speech, he repeated these words. Chip's eyes began to water. It was hard to tell if it was tears of sincerity or tears to get out of the situation. Either way, Enya was unfazed. During my days at the academy, your little gang teased and bullied me. But I saved your dying asses. I'm sore. I could have had my vengeance whenever I wanted, but I'm different from you guys. I took off my disguise to say that. Chip swallowed his wails, and Enya replied to these sounds. Do not evade my eyes even if you're shameful and scared, just as I acted when you bullied me. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But remember one thing, that Jean Grey and I saved you. One day we will return for you to repay the debt. Understood. Chip nodded, and this time Jean spoke. If an investigation begins afterwards, you can give away as much information as you want. If you want to see the fall of your clan, that is. It didn't matter if Chip kept his mouth shut or open. Preventing the Vermont Empire's investigation was impossible, since the novices outside the cave were massacred and the inner cave was devastated. They will cover up and sugarcoat it as much as possible to maintain the Academy's honor. On the other hand, the investigation team and special forces will be dispatched to figure something out. They will realize that the Heavenly Defiance occurred from the witnesses. I'll make the 7-colored peacock alter and manipulate some of the information. Jean slowly turned to Enya. Just a moment ago, she faced the past that stifled her since. Against all odds, Chip made an unexpected response. Someday, I will return the favor. He squeezed out those words with his remaining energy before falling unconscious once more. Jean and Enya looked at each other and shrugged. Whatever. Yeah, I thought he'd say something much worse. Jean went through Chip's pockets and found the badge with the Chip clan seal. If he showed the badge to Chip's horsemen and used them to bypass the gate guards, he would be able to dodge all of the annoying stuff. Now, let's go back and see what Fake Auden has to say. Bouvard Gaston. Perhaps Jean would hear something about him from Fake Auden. That glutton was the only person who could fool the novices who knew the real Auden. Chapter 166. The Fragmenter of Chaos. Splash. A bucket of cold water drenched the sleeping Fake Auden. Startled, Auden woke up and realized that he was tied to a chair. He shivered. Oof! In front of him, Elisa was filing her fingernails. The 7-colored peacock agent, who splashed Auden, quickly bowed and exited the room. As the agent closed the door, all light from the room was eliminated. Darkness filled the underground interrogation room, surrounding Fake Auden and Elisa. When I face fellas like you, I remember a past that I don't want to recall. Chchch. The sound of fingernails being filed was abnormally loud. As the knife flickered the little amount of light that was left in the room, Elisa's expressionless face occasionally came into view. In exchange for opposing Yuria and Lathri's resonance, she volunteered herself to conduct the interrogation. She was worried that Lathri might make a mistake while using resonance and cause her daughter to witness the most horrid and treacherous events or villains. As of now, she was an able and bright leader of Tychon's Central Defense Force. However, her past was filled with time spent in the Vermont Special Forces 2nd Division, the division, mainly focused on protecting the Vermont imperial family. Protecting had more roles than just being a bodyguard. For example, finding out the subordinates of an assassin, or investigating those kinds of cases, and torturing if needed. Amongst the members of Jin's party, Elisa was most used to hearing screams. There probably weren't many people who were as used to screams of pain as she was. Shit, what is... Ooh. Stopping the file, Elisa lightly blew on her fingers. Let me write a letter. If you are doing this for ransom, then I will contact the main base. Who are you? I can't believe Kiddard Hall's apprentice attacked us. There must be some mistake. There was no mistake. The chair you are sitting in right now is your world as of now. Ha! You going to torture me or something? What do you want from me? Information about the Dark Magic Association. Everything you know. It seems that Kiddard Hall's apprentice doesn't know something, but there's nothing good about knowing more about us. Even Kiddard Hall managed a distant relationship with us. If the main base finds out about torturing, you are dying to find out what I can do with this nail file, aren't you? Hessam's serial killer, Matto Baker. How do you know my name? Fake Otten. Hessam's serial killer Matto Baker's eyes grew wide. During the 4 days he was unconscious from mana overflow, Elisa used the 7-colored peacock to uncover some information about him. They identified the time that the real Otten Melson, who was a vegetarian, disappeared and easily found out fake Otten's identity through the intervals when he was disguised. Since Matto was someone famous for enjoying murder, he was a pain in the ass for the Hessam kingdom that was small and weak. CHCH. Elisa began to file her fingernails once more. I'm the co-leader of the 2nd Division in the Vermont Special Forces. And the one who attacked you was not Kiddard Hall's apprentice, but the Vermont imperial family's 8th prince. What? Hard to believe? Same here. I couldn't believe that some rotten old man could transform into a high-standing academy alumnus. Now, let's have some trust for each other. Tish the 8th prince. No way. Wait. Then the one that killed Kiddard of Perfusion. See, if you want to end your life comfortably, that's beyond the scope of the topic right now. Matto Baker began to scream even before Elisa started anything. He knew that there was no way for him to make it out of the room alive. ***** translator. J. Proofreader. Yukitokata ***** Elisa walked out of the underground interrogation room an hour later. Good work, Miss Elisa. Young Master Jean Enya. The two had been waiting in the first-floor guest room for her to return. Did you get anything out of him? Of course. He unraveled some shocking stories. The main base's location and list of affiliated magicians of the Dark Magic Association was only a fraction. We also got some information about the Transformer. The Transformer? Let us get into further detail upstairs, young master. In only an hour, she came back with just what he wanted. Jean genuinely marveled at her skill while Enya's face lost all color, imagining the horrors that occurred during the interrogation. Elisa saw her expression and smiled. Please do not think of anything too scary, Miss Enya. Interrogation is just an environment to elicit the information. The intel came in naturally when I mentioned young Master Jean being the 8th Prince of Vermont and myself being in the Special Forces 2nd Division. Impersonating my past organization for the sake of interrogation felt a little weird. Oh, I merely thought that you would be tired because of that man. Fufu, Matto Baker is scum that enjoys mass murder. Honestly, I felt a little bummed out when I went too easy. Looking at his past records in the Hessam Kingdom, he's done some horrendous things. She dealt with the problem very easily, without torture. Jean and Enya thought about whether that statement was the truth or not, yet they just shook their heads. If they had to choose the scariest person of them all within their group, they would choose Elisa without hesitation. Then what will happen to Matto now? That is none of your business, haha. You understood. They walked to Cashimir's office, where everyone had already gathered. Alright, since everyone's here, let's sort things out. Young Master Jean brought such a valuable person back. The Dark Magic Association's main base is surprisingly in Otirium. Otirium? Otirium? Isn't that Vankella's old capital? Murakan and Quicantel responded simultaneously, and Elisa nodded. Correct. It is the old capital of Vankella, located in the southwest side of the eastern region. The war was about 500 years ago, so Miss Quicantel would have seen it herself. It was when Murakan was in his slumber. However, just as Elisa said, Quicantel exactly remembered the Vankella that was on the verge of anarchy. I wasn't there at the location, but I remember it clearly since I was around back then. About 500 years ago, the Holy Kingdom of Vankella was raided by monsters to recover their sacred item, known as Jito's Eye. At the time, the Runcandles and Zipfels cooperated to help the neutral kingdom Vankella and dispatched knights and magicians. One of the only wars where the two strongest powers cooperated, the victory of the defense of the Holy Kingdom went to Vankella, but there was no way of saving the devastated lands. As a result, Vankella moved most of its main city to a new location and rebuilt the kingdom from there. The old capital remained as an unsupervised area, becoming a breeding ground for the surviving monsters. Murakan yawned as Quicantel summarized this story. Jean had to conceal his perplexed feelings. Lyall Zipfel's inheritance, the Ring of Erupting Flames Massacre Final Forms Magic Tome, is there in Otirium? Why the hell? Are those bastards residing there? The Dark Magic Association most likely didn't claim that land unintentionally. They were eradicated in the past by Lyall Zipfel. At first, he planned to defeat some bad guys, but the more he learned, more unexpected problems kept spilling out. How long have they been in that location? About 50 years. Anyway, if it's as young Master Jean says, the Dark Magic Association is no longer just the remnants. As expected, Ralt Joe's brother, Cole Joe, is also affiliated with the group. There's more where he came from. Elisa continued to read off some names affiliated with the Dark Magic Association. Everyone in the room let out a sigh. 3 9-stars were identified. Vermont Academy's Great Elder, Hudron Henserk. Lilistar's ruler, Susan Lilystar. Anza's Grand Magician, Chukan Tolder. The rest were beyond Matto's knowledge. Before I killed Ralt Joe, he said that within the Dark Magic Association, he fell into at most the top 10. I guess he was the 10th. What are they? If they're that strong, I guess Kinslow is even stronger. Jean, too, could only be surprised. He couldn't have imagined that so many powerful and important people gathered in an evil organization. Even in my past life, I hadn't heard about the Dark Magic Association and the Kinslow group growing that strong. I just found out, but I'm sure the main house and Zipfels already knew. They probably did. The organization was filled to the brim with all kinds of people, so there was no way the Runcandles, Zipfels, and Vermont Imperial family didn't bat an eye. Yet why? It was a problem to start uncovering, but one wrong move and there'd be too many people to deal with. The main house, Zipfels, and Vermont Imperial family probably have a reason to ignore this issue. Either they have something to recover from them or they know they shouldn't mess with the Dark Magic Association. All of the world powers. Remembering that the world powers didn't intervene with Kinslow's business, Jean grew more certain of the reasons. And there's some more shocking information. It seems that the Kinslow group has Bouvard Gaston the Transformer in their hands, and Matto Baker's transformation into Autumn Melson was his doing. Elisa unpacked the rest of the information, and Cashimir's eyes widened. It was the information that Jean had been waiting for. Wait, Bouvard Gaston. That's the name that came out when we investigated Vishical Ivliano's name. Although I am not sure, it is possible that Vishical is part of the Kinslow group. Once a week, he visits the Curano Dukedom, and he always goes to this one fragment workshop. The owner of the strangely titled Fragment Workshop, Artistic Explosion, is a man named Bouvard Gaston. According to what we found, Bouvard is an executive of the Kinslow group, and Vishical visits him every week, which raises suspicion. Kashmir looked astonished while recalling his old conversation with Jean. The dragons focused on the word transformation. How the hell does that human transform? And he can transform other people? Not just give them a disguise. That's something I'm hearing for the first time as well. Transformation is a blessing just between us dragons. Matto didn't know the method for his transformation either. He said he swallowed a sleeping pill, and when he woke up, Bouvard had already transformed him. I have met transformed assassins prior to Matto. When I left the Storm Castle, Zipful pursuers transformed as guardian knights went for my head. When Jean mentioned his story, all eyes were on him. And I almost killed Bouvard at the banquet. I will go meet him, personally. Chapter 167, The Fragmenter of Chaos 2. Had Jin's group noticed the Transformer's existence back then, they would have looked for him and ordered a confession. How he transformed people and what he was trying to gain with such power. However, the situation was different. The Kinslow group was dangerous beyond compare, and the infamous Transformer had to be an integral member of the organization. If anything happened to Bouvard, the organization would not let it slide. Thank God we found out. I was going to deal with Bouvard pretty soon. When Kashmir reported that Bouvard was an executive of Kinslow, he was a little surprised. He didn't think that dealing with him would be that much of a problem. We almost made a fatal mistake. I was about to touch a wasp's nest. I'm going to have to thank the dark magicians sometime. Jean didn't really have a reason to seek Bouvard immediately. However, having a light encounter wouldn't be too bad, since he gained an ample amount of valuable information from the dark magician's hideout. The young master? I don't think capturing and dealing with him like Matto Baker is. No, Miss Elisa, I just want to disguise myself as a customer and enter his fragment workshop once. I don't think the Kinslow Group and the Dark Magic Association have such high security. But how can we know for certain? What other information can be dropped? The Kinslow Group and the Dark Magic Association gave Jean their information not because their security was poor. They just didn't know about Magic Swordsman Jean Runcandle. Seeing their plan to capture the Academy magicians, Jean knew that they had been doing this the entire time, even in his past life. I should take advantage of the situation presented before me. Once the world begins to divert their attention towards Magic Swordsman Jean Grey or Jean Runcandle becomes a little too famous, it'll be much harder to take action. At that point, gathering intel would be harder by tenfold. The moment that people find out about Jean Runcandle, they would also find out that Tychon was under his wing. If you say so. Seeing his face at least once isn't a bad idea. And Kinslow doesn't know your face at all. Will you be going alone? Kashmir asked. Jean shook his head and responded with a smile. No, I got just the person to go with me. Oh, and Sir Kashmir, please make the seven-colored peacock gather some information about the relationship between Kinslow and the White Wolf tribe. *****. Meanwhile, the Vermont Special Forces diverted all of their attention to investigating the novices at the Dark Magic Association eradication mission. Looking into the case were the leader of the 3rd Division Ratch and 3 of his subordinates, together with Special Forces of Magic 1st Division 3rd Lieutenant V and 5 of his subordinates. Did seriously no one remember their faces? Pascal Chip, you, Kinmora, and Maz Oral are the ones who brought them as followers. Does it even make sense that you don't know their faces? We really don't know, Lieutenant. We lost almost 20 magicians that would have protected the Empire, and 2 6-stars along with 1 7-star died. If you don't tell me at once, the Empire will be in great danger. V shouted at them, and the 3 novices clenched their eyes shut. The courageous one was Chip. But sir, we really don't know anything. It's probably because of the overflow, but I have no memory of the event. We told you everything we know. You little? And above all, if it weren't for them, not a single novice would have survived. Honestly, we want to find them to repay the debt. Hey, that's right, Lieutenant. We only remember the names Jean and Austin Gray. If you find them, will you please tell us? Not just us 3, but I'm sure everyone else is of the same mind. As respected Academy novices, we should never forget our indebtedness. Ratch and V sighed. All of the novices were the same. They definitely knew something, but they all kept their mouths shut. Mora, Oral, and Chip said that they just wanted to return the favor. Nothing good would happen if the two agents found out that the novices got tricked by a pair of Special Forces impersonators. Plus, their fear of Jean was greater. As for the other novices, they had different reasons. Amongst those who experienced the heavenly defiance, they just thought that Kiddard of Profusion returned from the dead. To magicians, Kiddard's notoriety was nothing to be compared to. Although the novices haven't seen it for themselves, many of their parents experienced Kiddard's magic firsthand. And following their parents' footsteps, the novices gagged in the presence of overload spells. Regardless, it was either Kiddard's second coming or his apprentice killed the dark magicians. So they knew that the Special Forces had no reason to pursue him. Compared to buying Kiddard's hate, making the Special Forces a little more disappointed was better. The novices' parents thought that as well. In reality, the ones that the Special Forces should be pursuing should be the Dark Magic Association, not Kiddard. V spoke once the novices went away. Phew, the Emperor said to never torture the novices. This has got to be a joke. I don't understand why they're doing that. It must have been that much of a shock. Sir Ratch, what do you think? I'm sure of one thing. Jean Grey was Kiddard's apprentice, maybe even the man himself. If not, he would have never obtained the magic tome for the heavenly defiance from Vankella's eternal storage. I agree. When I first heard that Kiddard died, I just thought that he died to an assassin. However, from all the press all over the world, they said that the tome for the heavenly defiance was still in the eternal storage. In the case where Jean Grey is Kiddard himself, we can't forget about the assistance from the Transformer. For many reasons, he could have faked dying by Jean Grey's hand and changed identities. Ah, the mysterious Transformers that Groups 1 and 3 are pursuing. If so, then did Austin Grey kill the White Wolf tribesman? Ratch didn't answer and looked around the scene. Austin was smaller than Jean Grey and had an unfitting mustache. They also said that his voice sounded weird. Estimated age is mid-teens to early 20s. That was the evidence provided by everyone other than Chip, Mora, and Oral. Even though their parents would have told them to keep their mouth shut, not telling the Special Forces anything was still a little suffocating. Because of their late arrival, Goltep's corpse had already decomposed a little, but not his hammer. Ratch couldn't get his eyes off the weapon that was perfectly split into two. He could only think of one name, Dante Hyran. Small body, weird voice, and a boy who could split that hammer in half. From my knowledge, Dante is a strong suspect. I must go to the Hyran clan sometime. That night, Ratch took both halves of the hammer and sought the Hyran clan. Then he heard these words. I am not at a level where I can split it this cleanly. Looking at the cross-section, the person you're looking for has to be at least 8-star. Anyway, who was the one who killed the dark magicians? Jean Grey. Thanks to that, Dante had more to talk about with Baradin. They also got more to talk about with Jean on their next meetup. ***** translator. J. Proofreader. Yukitokata ***** October 30th, 1796. On the way to meet Bouvard in the Curano dukedom, Jean had to go through the Khan Kingdom's transfer gate. He then stopped by the bar where he drank with Baradin and Dante. He spent the day like that. At around lunch, he bought the ticket to transfer from the central region of the Khan Kingdom to the Curano dukedom. In the afternoon, the transfer gates were filled with traveling nobles and workers on business trips. With glasses on and without a sword, Jean had gloves to hide all his calluses. He looked like a businessman. Ladies and gentlemen, the transfer gate will open in 15 minutes. Until then, please remain in your seats. The stewards checked the passengers. Clop, clop. Jean heard the sound of shoes, ones that recently went trending in the Khan Kingdom. The owner of the footsteps stopped next to Jean and spoke. Can you move your bag? This is my seat. Jean looked up at a woman with gorgeous red hair and a suit, then awkwardly smiled. Ah yes, sorry. A little later, the transfer gates opened, and the passengers were swallowed with manna. As soon as he arrived, Jean sought and found the street with the fragment workshop. Bouvard's fragment workshop was not in the street where all the workshops were located. It was intentionally far away in the outskirts of the capital. Jean could buy suspicion, so there was nothing bad about being careful. He decidedly went from workshop to workshop and naturally asked each one about the most talented fragmenter, to which everyone brought up Bouvard's name. I don't know which clan he's from, but it seems he's searching for a genius fragmenter. I wanted him to fragment a bust of someone I truly respected. In a little corner on the west side of the city, you can find Bouvard Gaston's workshop. Try going there. If you think he's still lacking, then there's no one else in Curano who can satisfy you. I was actually looking for a famous fragmenter on the way. It's the first time I heard of such a name. Bouvard Gaston? Never heard his name in the Vermont art magazines. The most talented ones aren't always famous. If only Bouvard's personality was fine, he would have become the Emperor's sculptor. Maybe he would be scouted by Emperor Vermont. Is he that great? Between those who know, Bouvard is said to be a god of fragmenting. TSK. I don't understand why the gods gave such a horrible person such great talents. I'm so jealous, I could kill him. Ha ha. Calm down, sir. You wouldn't know, since you're not from here, but Curano's workshop street used to be twice as big. But after Bouvard appeared, many fragmenters saved his creations and stopped their work. Ha! The Bouvard Jean saw at the banquet didn't have that kind of image, but it seemed he was treated as the best of the best. What's the relationship between transformation magic and fragmenting? With that question in mind, Jean began to walk towards the fragment workshop. After a while, he arrived in a forest and spoke. Is it okay to reveal yourself now, elder sister Yona? Chapter 168. The Fragmenter of Chaos. 3. Rustle, rustle. Along with the sound of rustling leaves, a woman emerged from the shadows amongst the tree branches. Red hair and a suit, the woman who sat next to Jean at the transfer gate. The woman examined her surroundings, then hopped down from the tree. Oh, brother! Jean! A very excited voice. She had been following Jean ever since she found him at the Khan Kingdom. He had used his mind's eye in order to even detect her. He never had this planned in mind, but it was perfect. I was so tired of ignoring you on the train. Me too. How have you been, sister? Also, what is that disguise? I thought you dyed your hair with blood. At the transfer gate, that is. I heard from Owl that if I meet you again, then father will kill you. So I dyed my hair with my favorite color. Fixed my face with some makeup too. I don't know how those relate. Jean put his emotions aside and remembered one warning. He also warned me through you, to never even think of using elder sister Yona. Siren's warning that came, with the black light cuirass to not use Yona. However, Jean shut his eyes and wanted to use Yona's power. He wasn't killing Bouvard, just a light favor to eavesdrop. Even if father finds out, wouldn't he be fine with it? Well, it wasn't illegal if no one found out. And even if he did get caught, he could nullify the punishment by offering a majestic bust of Siren. What the hell am I thinking? If father was someone to glance over crimes, then our clan would have never become so great. I'll just not get caught. Never. Don't worry. Owl said he'll keep it a secret too. Also, I've had my senses heightened, and there wasn't anyone chasing us. Thank goodness. Though, I was also moving while keeping an eye out. So, why did you call for me? Half because I just wanted to see your face again, and the other half is to ask for a tiny favor. Anyway, take a look at this. What is it? Jean took out a mysterious vial containing a black liquid. He unscrewed the cap and downed the bottle. Thousand poison antidote. I'm using it well. I should show off the present you gave. Me, you know? Ahahaha. Jean, you're too funny. That's black moss poison. Really hard to get your hands on. Did your friends get it for you? Yes. I'll kill them. How could they give my brother such a thing? I asked them to get it for me. Be quiet. I don't like it at all. Yona's eyes became sharp, and Jean shook his hands frantically to calm her down. If she also found out that he was fed poison as soon as he woke up from his coma, Yona would actually kill them. Heh. Still, seeing that the antidote worked out well, it feels good. Reuniting with Yona after 2 months. She was still hard to read. However, Jean didn't hate her for that, and he didn't even feel any pity. Yona didn't like sympathy for whatever weird actions she did. So, what's the favor? From here on out, I'm going to meet a fragmenter named Bouvard Gaston. If you can, please eavesdrop on him. Whether he's just muttering to himself or conversing with another person. Simple, all right? Instead, when I'm done, you have to play with me. You're gonna have to watch him for days. If you're okay with it. The siblings chattered and walked through the forest together. As they walked for about 2 hours, they saw a sign that read, Artistic Explosion, Bouvard Gaston's Fragment Workshop. The workshop sat atop a shallow hill, dyeing itself in the sunset. Tons of fragments, big and small, laid in front of the workshop. The fascinating thing was, from each and every fragment, a strange aura could be felt, even from their distance. Shocking. Even for someone who's not an expert, I could feel it. Enough for other artists to feel hopeless. Getting closer and taking a gander, it was true. Anything fragmented to look alive looked as if it would move when touched, and every single inanimate object felt more dimensional than an original object. Yona glared at the fragments. Instead of falling into admiration, her eyes looked uncomfortable and angry. Sister, these fragments. Are you all right? Ah, yes. This is a little embarrassing. Someone like me made this. I just know. Excuse me? Someone like you. Is it something about her special powers? That thought shot through his head. But he didn't ask. Very interesting. Can you tell me now how you found this place? Jean thought for a second, then unloaded the information he earned from Maddo Baker. Yona was someone he could trust as much as he did Luna. So that's what happened. The Transformer, this fragmenter, and you beat him up at the banquet. Not too sure just yet. I just came to see if I can uncover some things. First, I'll erase my footsteps. Even if you can't detect me, don't think I abandoned you. Right after she finished her sentence, she disappeared. No matter how much he opened his mind's eye, he couldn't detect Yona's position or her existence. So this is her full strength. It seems she hid between the fragments. Before that, her reaction was weird. Elder sister Yona and Bouvard being similar people? Clang, clang. He first shook the bell on the door. Curano's fragmenters often operated underground, so they couldn't hear customers knocking on the door. Thud, thud. Footsteps echoed after shaking the bell for some time. Bouvard lugged his heavy body up the stairs, as if he were pissed. The door swung open. What kind of runt? Failing to continue his words, Bouvard stared at Jean for some time. Bouvard Gaston. Long time no see. Eek. What do you think you're doing here? He grabbed a handful of salt from his pocket and threw it at Jean. To his standards, the ones seeking his workshop were dirty lowlife customers, which was why he always had salt prepared. And amongst the lowlife, Jean was the worst. Fwing. Whip. Jean quickly evaded the projectiles and didn't get hit by a single salt crystal. That's a bit harsh. I came as a customer today. Customer, my ass. I don't take customers like you. Oh, you're gonna be like that? I'm no different than your savior. Savior? Savior? If my siblings or a guardian knight heard what you did at the banquet, your limbs would have been ripped off. You would have never dreamt of crafting such beautiful fragments. Shut up and die. Crack. Bouvard's fist hit Jin's chin. Phew, stop it now. Even if I am a prospective successor, this is crack. Getting hit twice, Jean felt something snap. The strings of his patience were snapping apart. Yeah, maybe beating up this guy might not be too bad. No, but does he have no fear? Or is he just stupid? The moment the third fist flew, thunk, Jean dunked his fist on top of Bouvard's head. Kook! The short battle was different from the battle at the banquet. Jean went through an amazing transformation while Bouvard remained as a pitiful 5-star. Bouvard lost balance and fell backwards, but Jean caught his wrist and kept him upright. Then, another person emerged from inside the workshop. Bouvard, what's the matter? Young master. Jean. Lord Vishical? He didn't expect Vishical to be at the artistic explosion that day. Young Master Jean, why are you here? Are you not in the middle of your provisional flag-bearer trials? About that, Lord Vishikal. This guy embarrassed me at the banquet and sought me again to cause a disruption. Aha! Please kill him. At that moment, Vishikal's eyes met the salt on the ground. He also glanced at Jin's slightly swollen chin and forehead. This disgusting fat ass. It's obvious what he did wrong. Swallowing those words, Vishikal took a deep breath. Please come inside, Bouvard. Apologize to him. Who are you telling me to kill? Why should I? You threw the first punch and incited violence. And you're telling him to apologize? You have anything to say for yourself? Vishikal scolded Bouvard, whose face wrinkled in a frown. Vishikal had been very stressed because of him recently. Irk. Still, I can't apologize. Yeah, then I'll do it for you. I'm sorry I hit you, Bouvard. Jean conceded and pushed Bouvard into the workshop before shaking hands with Vishikal. So this calm and cold man is also in the Kinsalo group? Sir Kashmir told me that Bouvard was above Vishikal, but it doesn't seem like it. And Vishikal had no idea Yona was nearby. As much as Vishikal is an 8-star, he must have a more polished mind's eye. I'm sure elder sister Yona will adjust accordingly. Letting go of Jin's hand, Vishikal shrugged. I apologize, young Master Jean. No worries. I came knowing that this would happen. I should have been more patient. I apologize for causing you stress. No need. Anyway, what brings you here? I wanted to have a bust of my father created, and all of the fragmenters in the workshop street recommended this place. This was my last straw. I see. I do have a rough past with him, but it's still my father's bust. Seeing the fragments in the front, it seems I came to the right place. I couldn't hide my astonishment. From Bouvard's pieces. Vishikal's eyes narrowed. Young Master Jean. Yes. Everyone knows that Bouvard's fragment work is amazing. However, I don't understand your demeanor as the Runcandle clan's youngest child. Ah. Did I act disrespectful in any way? Correct. The young master I saw at the banquet wasn't someone who'd act upon such an extraneous situation. In fact, if you needed a bust of Lord Siren, anyone from this area would have been just fine. As if admitting defeat, Jean shook his head. You saw right through me. Indeed, there was an ulterior motive. The one I wanted to meet wasn't Bouvard, but you, Lord Vishikal. Jean glared at Vishikal with burning eyes. Chapter 169. The Fragmenter of Chaos? 4. It was a blatant lie, but it was Jin's only choice since he slipped up in front of Vishikal. Vishikal Ivliano. Just one mistake and he'll become a pain in the ass. I have to conjure something that he'll believe. Vishikal tilted his head, shook it and kept a sharp eye on Jean. To meet me instead of Bouvard? Yes. For what reason? Oh, that's why. Jean looked hungry for a fight as his expression looked inviting. Vishikal smiled in interest. Would you like to duel me as a provisional flag-bearer? Not a bad reaction. It's embarrassing to admit, but that's true. Since I can't personally go to the Ivliano clan with my current status as a provisional flag-bearer, I first sought Bouvard, someone who Lady Margila referred to as a friend. Vishikal flinched at the word friend. So you're basically saying that you tried to meet me through Bouvard. Vishikal didn't ask Jean as to how he found the workshop's location. There was no reason for the Runcandles to not investigate Bouvard, who dueled the banquet's host. Although, I wasn't lying about having a bust of my father created. If I knew that Bouvard was the most talented fragmenter of this city, I wouldn't have searched the streets this entire time. A silence passed. Jean didn't know if his lies worked on Vishikal, but he wasn't desperate to find out. Vishikal took out a cigarette. Scritch. He scraped a match on the box's match striker, and smoke fluttered into the air. Vishikal took a second puff when half of the cigarette was burnt as he organized his thoughts on Jin's unexpected appearance. That day, the duel was quite memorable. I also waited for the day to duel you. Thank you for the compliments. However, now is not the time. Why not? Even though a rose grows some thorns, I should never step on a growing flower. Young master, as someone older than you, Allow me to advise you. Excessive bloodlust is poisonous. Jin's pupils shook. Look at this guy. It was a lie-turn challenge, but he didn't need to be this patronizing. However, Jin shouldn't rebuke it. After becoming a provisional flag-bearer, I fought many enemies. But it seemed my opponents were always a bit lacking. I don't get the same rush that I got when I fought you. The feeling of using the mind's blade. Please don't embody your current achievements as your whole self, young master. Those achievements almost caused some horrible accidents on the duel that day. The level of provocation rose. Nonetheless, Jin knew that Vishikal wouldn't want to fight him anyway. He isn't someone to fall for these provocations, and he won't earn anything out of a battle. Vishikal was currently an 8-star. Jin was announced to be a 5-star at the banquet. A sizable skill gap existed between them. However, Vishikal knew that Jin's achievements weren't small after 1.5 years since the banquet, though he didn't think that those achievements were relevant towards the outcome of the battle. Vishikal rubbed the ashes of the cigarette on the wall, then sighed. Please stop, young Master Jin. I don't want to get tired from such extraneous business. I came here on vacation. Don't you think it's a little disrespectful? I apologize for that. Whip. Vishikal created a palm-sized blade with his aura and cut Jin's bangs. Before the blade disappeared, before the hairs fell to the ground, he cut the falling strands once more. Realizing what happened half a beat later, Jin felt a cold sensation creeping up his back, and Bouvard thought Vishikal beheaded the run candle. I'm showing you in case you didn't understand. Do you think you'd stand a chance after failing to react to that? He was right, excluding the fact that Jin didn't react on purpose. I almost instinctively dodged it. Shoot, I would have dueled him for real then. Jin didn't want to duel either. The goading was all just to wash his body off from Vishikal's suspicion and catch his attention so that Yona could do her job. Bouvard smacked his lips after seeing that Jin was still alive. Why didn't you just cut this insolent bastard, Sir Vishikal? It would have felt great. Bouvard, are you out of your mind? What are you going to do when young Master Jin becomes a flag-bearer in the future? That kid will definitely die before he does. I can tell just from him fearlessly challenging you. He thinks he's on top of the world just because he's a run candle. Bouvard Gaston. Jin turned and stomped towards Bouvard. What? Why? How will you deal with me? Humph. You think I'm scared? Xing. Jin unsheathed Bradamanti. Young Master Jin? I admit my hubris and discourtesy, Lord Vishikal. I am no different from a child who can't even clash swords with you. However, this fellow talking bad of Runkadel is another problem. Jin wasn't simply making a scene, he really wanted to kill him. Bouvard flinched and tried to scramble behind Vishikal. One more step and I'll kill you, Bouvard. Young Master Jin, please stop. Lord Vishikal, if your clan was slandered, would you remain still? Vishikal could not answer. It was true that Bouvard spoke poorly about the run candles. I could take some of Bouvard's comments towards me since you were in front of me. However, towards my clan, he's one crazy fellow. Watching the situation unfold, Bouvard didn't blabber a single word. He realized that he would actually die if he moved a muscle. I understand. However, in this case, I'm gonna have to stop you as well. Then do so. And what if you die? Even if I die, I will kill him and protect the run candle name. Of course, since I am a provisional flag-bearer, you will face no consequences. If you kill Bouvard at this moment, I will kill you. If that happens, what's the point of protecting the run candle name? Even if the clan doesn't find out, I will not be ashamed of myself. Must you do this? Vishikal raised his voice for the first time. Shit, it's my fault for not controlling that damned bastard's mouth. The young master isn't joking right now. What to do? Cold sweat dripped down from Vishikal's nape. His desire to kill Bouvard was stronger than Jin's, but in order to finish Kinzelo's project, he had to keep him alive. However, Jin and Bouvard were too close to stop. The only way to stop Jin would be to cut his arm or throat before he could move. Yet Vishikal was not confident in cutting his arm. In his waist was only his belt. Before Jin came, Vishikal was eating sweet potato croquettes, so he unarmed himself. He could conjure a blade with his aura, but a small blade like that wouldn't work. To cut the arm, Vishikal needed a longer sword, but with that size, Bouvard's head would go off first. Hence, Vishikal's only choice was to cut Jean by the throat. If Jean Runcandle dies, will Lord Siren really do nothing? Siren was not the type to seek such vengeance. It was true that he valued Jean, but the moment the Runcandle clan reacted to the death of a provisional flag-bearer, they would be labeled as hypocrites. Vishikal couldn't be certain, however. The first provisional flag-bearer to have an honorary banquet after Luna killed in the hands of an Ivliano. What if that rumor spread? He predicted that, on top of the Ivliano clan, the Kinsalo group would also take a toll. I just need to hide it. No, I can't. Too many people saw his face in the workshop street. Putting the panicking Vishikal behind him, Jean opened his mouth. I will count to 3, Bouvard. During that time, kneel and apologize with your life. 1. Kneel, Bouvard. Vishikal screamed. If Bouvard just kneeled, this awkward situation would all come to a close. 2. Knee. Thump. Bouvard's chubby knees hit the ground. Vishikal sighed in relief, and Jean put his sword on Bouvard's throat. I did as you. You're not done. Now apologize. I should hear something I like before my hand slips. Bouvard trembled in anger and shame, and Vishikal's heart dropped. I did you wrong. Jean sheathed his sword and smiled. If it weren't for Lord Vishikal, I would have killed you. That is the usual consequence for slandering the Runcandle clan. Thank him, Fragmenter. Jean then walked to Vishikal and bowed. I have committed many acts of discourtesy, Lord Vishikal. If it'll help, you may beat me as much as you like. Vishikal smacked his forehead. I knew that Runcandles were like fire, but you are on another level. You were in no wrong to punish Bouvard. I show approval as the patriarch of the Ivliano clan. He was genuinely impressed. He's definitely a handful, but no other flag-bearer of Runcandle would do this. Jean Runcandle, you have surprised me many times since the banquet. He made sure to make Bouvard shut up in front of any stranger since then. However, I hope we don't have such chaotic encounters in the future. Please don't forget that I didn't attack you because Bouvard deserved his punishment. I won't forget. You are free to leave. Jean left the workshop, and Vishikal stared at his figure getting smaller and smaller. Once Jean was no longer in sight, he finally spat curses. After hearing 5 or 6 horrible words, Bouvard grabbed Vishikal and let out depthless excuses. Then he silently went to the basement. It's my first time seeing Sir Vishikal that angry. Jean Runcandle, that bastard. He was so disrespectful. Bouvard would never realize that Vishikal's anger was towards him instead of Jean. When Bouvard returned to the first floor, he had many croquettes in his arms. Rustle, rustle. Please eat this and calm down, Sir Vishikal. That rat bastard will never live a long life. Chapter 170. The Fragmenter of Chaos. 5. Vishikal pushed the sweet potato croquettes aside, hands trembling. Oh, I'd love to kill him. I very much would love to kill this annoying bastard. If he didn't scream his heart out, Vishikal would explode. Bouvard. Yes. Please go outside for 10 minutes. Why? Just, please. I beg you. Aha. Alright, I will. Oh, because there's no milk. Ararg. Crash. Vishikal destroyed the wooden table and screamed. Bouvard frantically scrambled outside. Even then, he tried to pick up and spare some of the croquettes that fell on the floor. Wow, Bouvard Gaston. Considering that he's a human made of chaos, he's definitely a special hunk of meat. Hehe. Even Yona had to sigh in disbelief as she watched the series of events from the window. Vishikal went down to the basement and screamed as if he were in an asylum. Arg. Please. Die. As the roars continued to echo in the basement, Yona watched and smiled. Phew. Vishikal returned to the first floor after calming down, then rearranged his hair. Bouvard re-entered with only 1 croquette left in his hand. He awkwardly glanced at Vishikal before cramming the snack into his mouth. Chew chew. Even watching this pitiful sight, Vishakal didn't react. Are you all right? Let us continue our previous conversation, Bouvard. The conversation that had been interrupted by Jin's unexpected arrival. Oh yes. The leader officially wants to end all alliances with the Zipfel clan. Vishakal started with important information. Yona put her ear closer to the window. Normally, she would keep a distance. Approaching an 8-star night was hard even for her. Despite this, Vishakal's senses were weakened due to him enhancing his patience beyond the boundaries of human capability just to tolerate Bouvard's bullshit. Ah, please tell them that was a great decision. The Zipfels are much worse and more evil than Jean Runcandle. Using the demon god's orb and breaking it, we should have ended it from the start. It's not the best situation. In order to execute our big plans, we needed their support. Whenever you craft artifacts, the quality of your ingredients won't be as luxurious. Wait, there was that problem. But Sir Vishakal, it's fragmenting, not crafting. They are two completely different disciplines. And they aren't artifacts, but pieces. Pieces of art. How many times do I have to explain this? Yeah, fragment, piece. Vishakal barely contained his contempt and hatred. How big is the difference in quality for the ingredients? We will never get any remains of deceased gods. As for the remains of old civilizations, we won't get half of what we used to get. Ha! Instead, according to the deal, we will retrieve all of the pieces that we gave to the Zipfels. The compass! Bouvard's eyes glimmered. We must retrieve the compass. With that, we will easily find gods and get more ingredients. The compass will definitely be one of them. Honestly, if we just get that back, we can let them have the rest. My best piece after the demon god's orb. Compass. My baby, you're coming back to daddy? Bouvard. Even then, you shouldn't be too happy. Why? When they first received the demon god's orb and compass, how did they behave? Just like I did. They were about to lick the leader's toes. And with the terms of cutting alliances, they are willingly giving it back. Do you really not have a single clue what this means? They're done using it? No. It means that they are able to make tools like the compass by themselves. No way. There's no way. It's impossible without my talent. Their magic is beyond your comprehension. It wouldn't be weird at all if they can replicate it, let alone fix the orb. On top of that, we will retrieve such items on the first day of June next year, which gives them more time to experiment. Why so late? The leader gave them that much time. It's because of the revocation clause. Since we initiated the revocation, I couldn't refuse. Vishakal bit and lit a cigarette in frustration. Bouvard nodded. 1st of June next year. Would there be any way to shorten that time? The leader said that he will go all out if the Zipfels don't keep the promise this time. So it's basically impossible. As long as the Runcandles stand, they can't fight us. That's a relief. 1st of June next year. Where will the rendezvous point be? The Bellard Empire's southern island. The land of the pirates. Thankfully, it isn't anywhere with annoying monsters. Please take me too. Why? I must be there so that the returning pieces won't get tampered. We can't have any issues afterwards. Vishakal's eyes widened. He couldn't believe Bouvard could speak sensibly. That's right. I will tell the leader. Oh, and Sir Vishakal, did we ever find him? The one that I transformed into a Zipfel magician. Matto Baker? Something like that. Because of that case, the headquarters are having a hard time. Vishakal cut off mid-sentence and stopped moving. After slowly examining the room, he checked every single window. Heh, man, I got too close. SSSS. Shuffle. Shuffle. Yona backed off from the window and hid. As she ran across the yard, not a single blade of grass bent or deformed. I sensed a faint footstep. Was it just me? Vishakal went out to the yard and shuffled through the lawn. The only thing he saw was Jin's footprints. What's the matter, Sir Vishakal? Bouvard waddled out and shrugged. Nothing. When I look at you, I think you're such a snowflake. Compared to you, Lady Margiela's optimism makes me happy. How are you siblings so different? Vishakal remained still for a second. Starting tomorrow, we will move your hideout. Somewhere the Zipfuls don't know. Ugh, that's annoying. Vishikal stared at the spot where Yona had been. He didn't know, however, that she was ever there. And Yona ran into the forest, giggling. I don't know what that chaotic hunk of meat and poor snowflake talked about, but I'm sure Jean would love it. ***** translator. J. Proofreader. Yukitokata *****. Whoa. My goodness. Listening to what Yona heard, Jean had his jaw dropped the entire time. Yona repeatedly grabbed her stomach as she laughed while narrating. They're that interesting? That face is hilarious. So you can look stupid like that too. This is packed with facts. I can't believe I got all of this in one day in a few hours. This is more surprising than digging through the Runcandle clan's archived documents. That much? Tell me about it too. So what you told me was... Oh, before that, you can't tell Owl any of this. Promise. Jean explained his experience with the Kinslow group as well as the information brought today. However, Yona couldn't understand any of it. She tilted her head to the side. In reality, she just thought that her little brother was cute, so she wasn't listening at all. So now you know why I'm so shocked. Yeah, sounds super fun. Either way, it wasn't very important to her. She only remembered that Bouvard was an entity of chaos. But Yona, what did you mean when you said Bouvard was like you? That seemingly small detail was stuck in his mind. How could that fat pig be similar to his sister? Oh, that. I can't tell you yet. You're gonna play like that between us? You have your secrets too. Jean conjured up spiritual energy and showed it to her. It was his way of saying that there were no more secrets between them. Ack! Yona scrambled backwards, as if she had seen something she should have never seen. Huh! Die! Confronted with the spiritual energy, the endless whispers within her became louder. A voice strong enough to compel her to slice her brother's throat open. She and Bouvard were born from deeply concentrated chaos. However, Bouvard's chaos wouldn't react similarly in the face of spiritual energy. Get rid of it! Jean dispersed the smoke on his hand. The voices in Yona's head died down, and she was able to be freed of her impulse to kill Jean. The spiritual energy only lasted for about 2 to 3 seconds, but her entire body was covered in sweat. She gasped for each breath. If she didn't truly love Jean, she wouldn't have been able to hold herself back. Yona! From now on, never show that thing to me again. Don't ask any further. What? Jean deduced a conclusion. She definitely backed off to not attack me. The spiritual energy stimulated her. A few seconds ago, Yona's widened eyes filled to the brim with fear. The fear of almost killing her own brother. Jean suppressed his feelings of horror and shook his head. I don't understand, but I apologize. I didn't know. If I see spiritual energy, then I lose my consciousness. No need to be sorry, since I never explained it. Heh! I thought you'd hide that secret until you actually became a flag bearer. Why would I? Am I someone to be trusted that much? Or is it because you might not like me? The former is completely wrong, but the latter sounds honest. It's true that I wanted to hide that bit. Until we spent time together in the flower fields, that is. It wasn't the smoothest reply, but he didn't want to lie. If he had his spiritual energy out for a little longer, Yona would have killed him. On the spot. Jean had no intention of making her sad. I should be more careful. We'll naturally solve this problem when I get strong enough so you can't do anything. Don't worry too much. Heh. Dream on, kiddo. Now play with me like you promised. Afterwards, Jean and Yona traveled around the area and hung out. Not only were Joshua's knights stationed in the area, although they were already dead, but Siren's knights were also guarding it. And naturally, news of their little playdate reached Siren's ears.